Mike Tyson's story has never been one of simple dominance. Yes, he is remembered as the youngest heavyweight champion in history, the man who terrorized opponents with knockout power so ferocious that many challengers were beaten before the first bell even rang. But behind the aura of invincibility were nights when Tyson was pushed to the edge, tested by men who weren't intimidated, who stood tall and refused to bow to the legend. And it was on those nights, when the crowd gasped and victory nearly slipped from his grasp, that Iron Mike proved why he would forever be called one of the greatest. Tyson's meteoric rise was like nothing boxing had ever seen. The squat, muscular powerhouse would storm across the ring at the opening bell, swinging with bad intentions, determined to end things before his opponent even knew what had hit him. But even the most feared predator eventually encounters prey that bites back. Tyson learned this lesson in 1990, when a relatively unknown Buster Douglas shattered his aura of invincibility in Tokyo. Douglas weathered Tyson's assault, used his jab to keep him at bay, and then unleashed a thunderous uppercut that sent Iron Mike sprawling to the canvas. The world watched in disbelief as Tyson scrambled helplessly for his mouthpiece, the unbeatable champion suddenly human, humbled, and beaten for the first time. That night reminded everyone that in boxing, no giant is untouchable, but Tyson was not finished. His legacy would be shaped just as much by the fights where he looked vulnerable as the ones where he demolished foes in seconds. One of the most infamous of those nights came in 1991 when Tyson faced Donovan "Razor" Ruddock, a man many believed had the tools to finally dethrone him for good. Ruddock was no ordinary challenger. He carried dynamite in his left hand, a crushing punch known as the smash, and he promised to expose Tyson as overrated. The press ate it up, billing the showdown as the moment the Iron Mike era would collapse. From the opening bell, the fight was chaos. Both men charged forward like bulls in a pit, throwing wild bombs, neither willing to back down. Tyson worked inside with his trademark hooks and uppercuts, but Ruddock stood his ground, firing back with brutal shots of his own. By the middle rounds, the crowd could hardly believe what they were seeing. Tyson, usually the predator, was being staggered by Ruddock's blows. His head snapped back, his aura of invulnerability cracking under the onslaught. Fans who worshipped Tyson felt a chill. This could be the night their hero was broken. And then, in the 7th round, when it seemed like Razor had finally cornered the beast, Tyson erupted. With lightning speed, he unleashed a barrage of punches that left Ruddock dazed and defenseless. The referee had no choice but to stop the fight as the crowd roared in shock and relief. Tyson had been one step from defeat, but instead, he walked away with a brutal stoppage victory, proving once again that he was still the king of the heavyweights. 8 years later, in 1999, Tyson found himself in another dangerous battle, this time with Francois Botha. What was supposed to be a routine comeback fight quickly turned into a storm. Before the bout even began, Tyson's temper flared when a reporter provoked him during a press conference. By the time he stepped into the ring, Tyson was seething with rage. Botha, sensing opportunity, used a clever strategy. Attack just enough to frustrate Tyson, then clinch and smother to avoid retaliation. The plan worked for a while, driving Tyson to the edge of disqualification. At one point, in a shocking display of frustration, Tyson even attempted to wrench Botha's arm, threatening to turn the fight into chaos. But once Tyson's corner calmed him, the tide shifted. In the 5th round, with his fury controlled and his focus sharpened, Tyson delivered one of the most devastating right hands of his career. Botha crumpled to the canvas, his legs gone, his fight over. The message was clear. Even when rattled, even when dragged into the mud, Tyson's power could end everything in an instant. Of course, Tyson's career was also defined by his battles with giants, literally. In 1987, he stepped into the ring with Tony Tucker, a towering undefeated champion who had just dismantled Buster Douglas and claimed the IBF heavyweight title. The fight was billed as the clash that would determine the undisputed heavyweight king. Many wondered if Tyson, giving up so much height and reach, could handle the size and skill of Tucker. For 12 grueling rounds, Tucker made his case. He used his long jab, sharp counters, and even mocking antics to frustrate Tyson, at one point raising his arms and shaking his head as if to say, "You can't hurt me." But mocking Tyson was a dangerous game. Fueled by rage, Tyson bulldozed his way inside, hammering Tucker with body shots and looping hooks. Tucker landed clean, even wobbling Tyson with a right hand that stunned the crowd. Yet Tyson's relentlessness wore the bigger man down. By the end of the fight, it was Tyson's hand raised, his claim as undisputed champion secured. Then there was Frank Bruno, the muscle-bound British heavyweight who looked like he had been carved out of stone. Bruno had the physique of a superhero and the punching power to match, and he boldly declared that Tyson would be no different than the others he had crushed. Their first meeting in 1989 proved that Bruno was no coward. In the opening round, Tyson floored him with a vicious right hand, but Bruno recovered, and to the shock of many, he staggered Tyson with a thunderous left hook, one of the rare moments where Iron Mike looked vulnerable. For a few fleeting minutes, it seemed Bruno might accomplish the unthinkable, but Tyson thrived in chaos. Shaking off the blow, he tore into Bruno with savage intensity, hammering him with combinations until the referee mercifully stopped the fight in the 5th round. Tyson's fury had turned Bruno's muscles into little more than armor that couldn't protect him from the storm. Perhaps the most peculiar rival Tyson faced during this period was Mitch Blood Green. Their 1986 fight inside Madison Square Garden was less about championships and more about pride. Green, a New York street fighter with a reputation as a gangster, trash-talked Tyson mercilessly, vowing to humiliate him in front of his own city. But once the bell rang, words meant nothing. Tyson unleashed his fury, pounding Green with thunderous shots. To his credit, Green didn't fold. He absorbed punishment round after round, even rallying briefly with counters that caught Tyson clean. But Tyson was a locomotive, relentless, and Green was tied to the tracks. After 12 rounds, there was no question who had won. Tyson's hand was raised, and Green slunk into obscurity. These fights told a deeper story than Tyson's highlight reel knockouts. They revealed the man behind the aura. They showed the moments when Iron Mike was rattled, when the myth of invincibility seemed to fracture, and when defeat seemed inevitable. Yet each time Tyson clawed his way back, reminding the world that beyond the mystique was a fighter with extraordinary resilience, savage willpower, and the kind of punching power that could erase mistakes in a single instant. Mike Tyson's career is a paradox. He is remembered as the most feared knockout artist of his generation, yet some of his greatest moments came not in victory without challenge, but in survival when challenge came roaring back at him. Against Ruddock, against Botha, against Tucker, Bruno, and Green, Tyson showed that he was more than just a destroyer. He was a warrior who could take punishment, weather storms, and still deliver devastation when it mattered most. And that is why, even decades later, his name echoes through the halls of boxing history. Mike Tyson wasn't just a knockout artist. He was the fighter who, even when the world held its breath and waited for him to fall, found a way to rise and remind everyone why they called him Iron Mike.